I think there's this notion or kind of misunderstanding that you need thousands and thousands of links to rank or be competitive. And I think that's what everyone was aiming for in the old days. But now we're looking at how relevant those backlinks are to your publication, to your products, to everything you're doing. And we're finding that a handful of really relevant backlinks can have a really big impact on search rankings. It doesn't need to be about having thousands of links anymore. It can be more tactical than that. So I think that's really good news for small businesses.
Welcome to the third season of the Simple and Smart SEO Show, the podcast dedicated to empathy-driven, brand-building SEO. I'm your host, Crystal Waddell. I leverage my obsession with user experience to help business owners just like you optimize your website with confidence. Thank you so much for being here. Let's jump into another great episode. Welcome back to the Simple and Smart SEO Show, everybody. I am here with a very special guest today from the UK. It's the beautiful Jane Hunt from JBH. And I'm going to let her tell a little bit about herself and her company. Jane, I am so excited that you're here today to talk to us about digital public relations and all that goes on with it and its relationship with SEO. So thank you so much for being here.
No problem. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. So, yeah, I'll share a little bit about me and my background. So, yes, I'm Jane Hunt. I'm the CEO and co founder of JBH. And JBH is a digital PR and SEO agency. And I say it like that because we've always been a digital PR agency and we've recently added SEO on. So, normally agencies do it the other way around and they start as SEO agencies, then they add on different services. But digital PR was always our area of expertise. So we wanted to add in kind of the technical SEO knowledge, etc., really to bolster what we're doing and just make it a little bit more holistic in that sense. So
So,
yeah,
so when did you see the relationship between PR and SEO? Like, when did you say, wow, this is a piece of our business that could really enhance what we're already doing?
yeah, it's a funny one because originally we set up as a content agency just over 10 years ago. So at the time, there was this like big opportunity to be a content marketing agency. And literally, we did everything under the sun. We did websites, graphic design, social media, infographics, all kinds of things. And as part of that, we were being asked to do link building campaigns. So putting infographics together, interactive infographics, and things like that, anything that was needed to support link building campaigns. And then about 7 years ago, I decided that actually I think we should specialize. We should just focus on one thing, be the experts in that. So at that time, we could see like the potential for digital PR. Link building was very much a thing then, but digital PR was becoming something else, kind of like the grown up or the big
Mhm.
sister to link building. And it was just a really good time to be like, yep, we're going to put all our eggs in one basket. We're going to focus on digital PR. We're going to be the experts in this. So a good 7 years later, here we are doing digital PR, of course. And yeah, so it's been an evolution in that it started out as link building. And then gradually we've been borrowing from traditional PR, borrowing those techniques, fusing that with kind of our content marketing knowledge and skills, but also bringing in the kind of SEO knowledge as well. So we've got this digital PR package now, which kind of covers all three things. Obviously, we are building links still, but we're also very much thinking about the brand. So how are we building brand awareness? How can we build brand credibility, build trust for Google, and really make sure that we're not just building links, but we're also really getting the brand name out there, positioning brands, and just making sure that they're seen as experts within their marketplace.
That's awesome. So, okay, you just named the three things that a PR agency does, but can you break that down? Because a lot of our listeners are solo entrepreneurs or other SEOs. And so, if there was like a specific task that kind of went along with those things, is there anything like that that you can tell us about what a PR agency does beyond the link building itself, but like building brand awareness and that type of stuff? Like, what does that mean?
Good question. So it can mean different things to different brands, but essentially, most of the clients we work with, they all know that they want to build brand awareness. So they want to reach more people. They want to position their brand in a specific way with specific audiences. and they really want to make sure they're showcasing like all their internal expertise. So it's sometimes a combination of all these things. Sometimes we're working with small brands and we're putting them on the map in terms of we might be getting them their first PR coverage, their first links, etc. And then sometimes we're working with much bigger brands, and sometimes we're doing repositioning projects where we're trying to challenge kind of existing thinking within the media, within their target audience, etc., to get people thinking about them in a different way. So we're doing kind of portions of traditional PR as well when we're putting content together, when we're pitching journalists.
Okay, so that kind of gives me a reminder to ask you about this intersection of PR and PR, which is like press release to journalists or press releases to media and public relations. And I was talking about PR with someone one day and they thought I was talking about press releases. And I'm assuming that press releases are part of PR, but can you explain the differences between the two?
Yeah, so I associate press releases very much with kind of traditional PR because it used to be, it probably still is in traditional PR, very much you put a release together and it's all about your brand, what might be going on, what you might be launching, what new initiatives you have, etc. And I think we borrow that, but we don't really mean press release in digital PR. What we tend to mean is that we're sending a pitch to journalists and it tends to be shorter, tends to be a bit more informal, etc. And we're not really pushing products so much. We're pushing kind of expertise, or we're pushing some new data or some kind of new opinion that kind of adds to a story rather than that specifically about the brand. So we're trying to make it non-salesy to get journalists to cover whatever we're talking about.
That's the best definition I've heard of that. That finally clicks for me too,
Oh,
to
good.
understand how it works. Yeah, because it's like enhancing what they're already doing, but really giving
Yeah.
yourself a leg up in terms of your authority. Okay, definitely making that connection now. So, what about the differences between PR versus marketing versus advertising?
Okay. So there's big differences between all of them. So I can't comment too much on advertising because I've never worked in advertising, for example, but we tend to associate advertising with kind of TV advertising, billboards, anything big and potentially outdoors or on a TV or on the radio, whatever it might be. And then marketing. I'm a marketer. I trained a while ago when it wasn't digital marketing, it was just general marketing, etc, and it used to cover absolutely everything. And now that most of what we do is digital, now marketing has become lots of different little disciplines like SEO, PPC, email marketing, social media, etc. So you've got all these new facets of what kind of is it's marketing essentially. So like different forms of marketing and different channels, etc. And then you've got PR, which I think is a form of marketing. You're trying to build the brand, you're trying to position it, you're trying to reach people, etc., influence their decision making and things. So for me, PR is just one facet of marketing, and PR should reflect what the marketing strategy is for the brand at the end of the day. Does
So,
that help? I feel like that was a really long-winded like answer.
yeah, it does. It's one of those things where I think that's a question that I saw when I was researching just for our talk today. Just what are those differences? And especially for small businesses, I think there's this idea that you have to choose one when in fact you might have to choose more than one and you probably should, right? I see you nodding your head. So I'd love your thoughts on
Yeah, I really admire marketers these days because there's so much you have to consider. You have to be an expert. If it's just you, if you're just the only marketer in your team or you're the marketer for your business, there's so much you have to consider. You have to be an expert in all these different things. And there's so much to monitor. There's so much to do on a daily basis compared to the old days. So yeah, hats off to marketers because I think do an amazing job.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to measuring your efforts, how do you measure the effectiveness?
Good question. In terms of traditional public relations, you can look at the amount of coverage you generate. So, where you get that coverage, which publications are they in front of your target audience and things? What's the reach of those publications? So, how many millions of people do they reach and where? Engagement levels. So, were people interacting with the story? Was it shared to social media? Things like that. And then on the other side of things, when we're looking at digital PR, because we're thinking about it from an SEO perspective, we're thinking about kind of the not just the coverage, but whether that coverage included a backlink. And it's that backlink that we're really looking for because that sends signals to Google, etc. And that will build kind of link equity and help brands rank higher in organic search. So there's the digital PR metrics we're looking at, quantity of backlinks, for example, the domain authority of the publications where those backlinks were earned. We're also looking at any referral traffic off the back. We're looking at specific keyword rankings that might increase over a period of time and general kind of organic traffic over a period of time as a result. And then on the brand side, so this is where more traditional public relations comes in. We're looking at the impact for the brand. So, and there's a lot you can look at here. So I'll try and keep it simple. But it's the type of coverage. Was it kind of audience facing? What were the key messages involved in this? So, how did we position the brand in the coverage? What pages does the link point to? And just generally how it's going to be perceived and the sentiment of it. So at JBH, we tend to focus on an SEO score and a brand score to have that clarity between the two.
So I'm curious, how many backlinks does it take, or is it more dependent on the domain authority of the website to raise the domain authority of the website seeking the PR coverage?
I wish there was an actual figure for that, but
Yeah.
it varies depending on kind of what the brand is, how competitive the marketplace is, and what you're trying to compete for. Some brands, if they're not in a competitive marketplace, for instance, or where competitors' websites are relatively poorly SEO'd, for example, your domain authority might shoot up, etc., with a few kind of key backlinks. If you're in a competitive sector, you're going to have to fight so much harder to have the same impact. So the resource might be a lot more in terms of kind of budget and effort. Having said that, I think there's this notion or kind of misunderstanding that you need thousands and thousands of links to rank or be competitive. And I think that's what everyone was aiming for in the old days. But now we're looking at how relevant those backlinks are to your publication, to your products, to everything you're doing. And we're finding that a handful of really relevant backlinks can have a really big impact on search rankings. It doesn't need to be about having thousands of links anymore. It can be more tactical than that. So I think that's really good news for small businesses.
I think it's wonderful news. I'm like super excited to hear that. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's great for all of us. I have a story to share with you. I was excited that this happened yesterday. One of my friends who is also a handmade seller, because I make wooden things
No, I was
and
admiring your background earlier.
yeah, thank you. And I make giant photo collages for athletes. And I started on Etsy and then I built my Shopify store. That's how I fell into SEO. One of my friends, she also sells on Etsy and through a variety of fortunate events. So work on her part and then some good fortune. One of her products ended up on the Today Show.
Oh,
And yeah. And so when they mentioned her product, she saw major
yep,
upswing on
yep,
her sales that day, triple digit sales. She was super excited about that. Now, the challenge for Etsy sellers a lot of times is that a brand will tag Etsy, whereas we are our own brands, right?
exactly. Yep,
Even though we're selling on Etsy.
yep,
So she did something very smart and I was so excited for her. She tagged all of the people who were involved on the show on social media with her brand account. And then they reshared it.
oh,
And
mate.
yeah, and so she was just singing the praises of PR yesterday and talking about the
Yep,
snowball effect and stuff. And
yep,
so I thought it was just such a fun story because I was talking to you today and I thought, oh my gosh, I can't wait to
yep.
tell you what happened.
And I love that because that's the power of kind of PR in that you might be sending out a simple pitch. It might be about a
Mhm.
product. It might be about some expertise or some data or some opinions or whatever it is. You never know where that could go. We've had pitches or products end up on similar TV shows in the UK, and that's amazing for the brand. Even if you can't correlate any direct kind of impact from an SEO perspective, the fact that your brand is now on national TV, that's huge. So I think sometimes we get tunnel vision and we just think about the links, the quantity of links and what they do. But there's this kind of added value that digital
Mhm.
and traditional PR comes with that I think it's really important to recognize.
Absolutely. I love that term added value. I'm going to add that to my little toolbox over here because it's so true. And one of the things that has shocked me just about the SEO conversations that I've seen online is that they are so focused on numerical,
Yeah.
quantifiable metrics, but those metrics may have absolutely zero to do with actual business growth. And so, again, that was why I was so happy to come across your company and Andrew Holland, because I found someone that I was like, oh my gosh, this person's talking about something that's actually relevant to business goals. And so I thought that was so neat. And so I see how those things work together. What about a small business creating a media kit or a media page? Is that a first step to being prepared for a public relations campaign, or is that something separate?
No, it definitely helps. Anything that you can do to provide a journalist with an overview of your business, of who you are, the expertise that you can provide to that journalist, that's what they really want to know. What topics can you cover? What can you talk about with authority? And do you have everything that they might need quickly? So say if they were going to pick up one of your stories, have you got everything ready for them so they can just jump on it immediately? Have they got links to your social media accounts, etc.? Is everything they need ready to go? That's what you're aiming for, including kind of images and everything else. So yeah, it's really helpful having either an about page or a media kit online or just a PDF that you can send out or something. But you can even strip it back even further than that and just like a quick intro to journalists, just an email intro, introducing yourself, but making it really clear what you can cover, what your area of expertise is, and the kind of things that you'd like to respond to. And then they can file that away for when they've got something relevant. And then if they have, they'll get in touch with you.
Oh, I never thought about it from the idea of being proactive. That's super.
Especially if you do something niche as well, or if you've got a particular opinion or you do something differently, then that's what journalists really want to hear about. Anyone that's doing something a little bit differently.
Okay. So the other conversation in SEO where it intersects with public relations, I feel like, is in that link building. And I've seen your posts on it, and there's that practice of buying links.
Yep.
So I was wondering if you could just speak to the advantages of PR over traditional link buying.
Yeah, so we come across link buying a lot. I think it's very common still for a lot of brands all over the world. And I understand why brands do it because it's quick, it's easier to do, it's a lot easier to do because it's just a transaction. Digital PR is much more holistic. You're earning links. You're not buying them. It's not a paid transaction in that sense. You're offering something that's useful or it's entertaining and you're providing that to a journalist and they're providing you with coverage or a backlink in return. And the beauty of those is they tend to be higher authority backlinks. They tend to showcase your expertise, etc. They tend to be on sites that have much better traffic volumes, bigger reach, etc. Tend to, not all the time, but most of the time. So if you do get any referral traffic from it, it's to be more relevant, etc. At the end of the day, those links you earn should last longer, a lot longer, and be more valuable than the ones you buy. It might be quick to pay for a link, but the value you get from earning that link should be much better. And equally, we're talking to brands at the moment that are getting penalized by Google for link
Mhm.
spamming, for buying really bad quality links and they're now paying for it. And sometimes their traffic has just fallen off a cliff overnight. So it goes like that. And suddenly there's nothing.
Mhm.
So it can be really damaging as well. If so, our advice would always be to never buy links. There's a much better way of doing it. It's more ethical and it's better for the brand. If you're buying links, you're not thinking about your brand at all. You're not even thinking about the consequences of a year or 2 years or 5 years down the line and what might happen.
Yeah, I think it's just so interesting. Like what you said before, now getting higher quality backlinks, but fewer backlinks is more powerful than a whole bunch of really bad or mediocre
Yep.
links. So many people have just come into my inbox and said, I can get you blah, blah, blah links. And I'm thinking, you don't even know my business. Are you
We
sure?
get them too, and I make this stand that we don't buy links, and people daily send me these messages. I'm like, "You're not even looking at my LinkedIn."
Yeah. So if you're a business owner and you're not informed of this particular practice, you might fall victim to it because
Yeah,
when those traffic drops happen, I'm sure a lot of businesses are taken off guard. Like, what
it's
did we do? We have
overnight, yeah.
definitely a thing to be aware of. What about mistakes besides buying links? What other mistakes have you seen people make in this field?
Ooh, good question. So in terms of what you're pitching journalists or anything
Yeah.
else?
I guess like the type of mistakes that lead to frustration or no results, those types of.
Okay, good. Okay. Mistakes people often make not doing enough research before they put campaigns together. There's also everyone seems to love a big kind of content-led hero campaign, etc. And you spend all this money putting one together, all this resource. You might wait a month, 2 months for it to go live. It goes live, and then suddenly there's no links coming in. And you're like, we made this amazing piece of content. Why does nobody want to link to it? But it may be that it's not timely. You haven't done your research enough. Just because you think something's interesting doesn't mean other people will. And that's the biggest mistake businesses make because you love your brand, your products, what you do doesn't mean everybody else will. And communicating that's really difficult. But when you make your campaign about what you do and your products, it loses its authenticity, it loses its interest to people, etc. So you've got to think really hard about coming up with the right ideas, it not being too close to your brand, that it's not of interest to other people. And we have a really nice thing we call the pub test. So if you were to go to the pub and say to your mates, like, what do you think of this idea? If they're like, oh yeah, that sounds like really cool. So if they don't work in SEO, they don't work in the industry, and you ask them what they think, they're like, oh yeah, that's really interesting. Then you know people outside of your industry might be interested in that content. And that gives you a little bit more faith that what you're putting together might resonate out there. So that's one of the things that we see go wrong. Another one is not making the most of your campaigns from an internal linking perspective. So if you have got content and it's on your blog, for example, make sure you're linking to specific relevant pages through internal linking. So if you do generate any links from that campaign, that link equity gets to travel through your site. And then you're really making the most of that campaign. Trying to think what else might go wrong. And occasionally, sometimes people get the ideas very wrong, or sometimes they're not received well, or especially if it's a contentious, trying to think of some examples, but especially if it's like a contentious subject. So you have to be really careful what you're talking about, why you're talking about it, and to have a good reason for talking about it in case it backfires. And for instance, I know there was one agency in the UK and they did a piece about it was looking into the future about what it was like if everyone works from home and a lot of people like sat on their bed working, what we're going to look like in however many years. And I think they focused on women at home as the focus for this piece. And then there was just outrage from everybody about how insensitive this was and things. So you have to, even if you think you're doing something relevant that kind of fits your brand, you have to be so careful how you position it and what that idea looks like. So yeah, they're just a few things that can go wrong.
So, just to flip that a little bit, one thing I've realized about social media or just observed about social media, had an aha, is oh my gosh, like controversy is the best thing for your social media account. And if you can get over yourself and over people calling you names and
If you're
things, that's really the way that you can grow the
yeah,
fastest. And so, that publicity that the brand got, even though it was negative, do you feel like it still had some positive qualities to it at the end of the day or no?
it depends on the brand. We've worked with some brands that don't have the brand notoriety or don't have a huge reputation to protect, and therefore they can be a lot freer with the kind of campaigns they create. And then sometimes we work with brands who have their own PR team who are very careful about the messages going out there and things. But yeah, you can look at it from many respects. So you can have a campaign that might go viral for the wrong reasons, and you might generate a ton of links from that campaign. But what damage does it do to the brand in the process and to you personally, and maybe as the founder or whoever you are? So it's constantly trying to weigh up the pros and cons of things. And also, you don't know that those links are going to last that long, depending on where they come from, etc. But the impact on your brand reputation might last a lot longer than the impact of those links. So it might not be worth it.
Yeah, that's a great answer. So, one thing I always like to ask everybody is from your perspective, if a small business owner is listening to all the advice that you're giving right now, and they're thinking, okay, I want to implement something that has been said today, what is the one thing that you think would be the most impactful for their business?
I think as a first step, have a think about the business, what's different about the business. And it might not be what you sell, it might be the way you sell it, or it might be your views on what's going on in your marketplace. If you have anything different you can say, or you have a unique perspective on something, then potentially you've got something you can start with. You've got opinions that you might be able to provide journalists with. Equally, if you're in e-commerce, you might have a lot of data. So you might have specific angles that you can send journalists. There's might be plenty that you already have that you can work with in order to start thinking about if you were going to get involved in digital PR, or if you're going to do something for yourself, what could you work with? And it might be just writing down a few ideas on what you could offer journalists. Also, what kind of publications do you want links from? So what are your dream publications? Where does your target audience sit? Having a look at those publications, what they're writing about, topics you can cover that they're covering. And then that will give you a good idea of your relevancy for those titles. And you might think, I can add to that conversation too. Or they haven't talked about this, I can offer this. So that could be a really good starting point. Just a bit of research.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so if someone is listening right now and they are a good fit for working with you at JBH, how can they identify themselves?
Good question. So they can either come and find me on LinkedIn and I'll provide you with all those details, or they can come to the JBH website, which is jbh.co.uk. And we have kind of forms that you can fill in, etc. Or as I say, come and find me on LinkedIn and drop me a message. In terms of business size, we work with brands of all shapes and sizes around the world. But the one thing they tend to have in common is they tend to have already done some digital PR before, and maybe they want to be more competitive, and maybe they're ready to take the digital PR to the next level. There isn't a specific kind of size brand we work with. So we'd work with startups, we'd work with huge brands, etc. It's more about where they are in their kind of link building journey, where we can kind of slot into that and where we can offer the most value. So I'd suggest reach out, tell me what your situation is, and then we can have a chat to see if we're a good fit.
Yeah, I have one client right now who I feel like would be an amazing fit for you guys. And so I'm trying to push her your way. And the next content meeting we have, I'm definitely going to bring it up again because she's fantastic. And what she's doing is so perfectly aligned with what you share. It's just, it makes my mind just
Amazing. That's so good to hear.
yeah.
We work with a lot of e-commerce brands, and we work with brands across lifestyle, property and home, healthcare brands, and personal finance brands, and also health and beauty as well. So we cover like the lifestyle vertical.
And you're based in the UK, but you work with brands globally, right?
Yes, we're based in the UK, but we also have a few clients in the US as well, and all over actually. So we've got clients in Australia, US, UK, yeah, dotted about. Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. Congratulations. It's amazing to meet a female founder who is just so successful and yet still so down to earth. Like you are just
Oh,
such a
thank you.
kind
That's very
person.
sweet.
Yeah. So thank you for being here.
I just appreciate the opportunity, and
Oh,
it's been lovely to chat.
yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much. And guys, I will catch you next time. Have a great day.
Thank you.